Hello ladies and gentlemen, Pansy here, and today we're talking about D.VA. Yes, I know I did a video about D.VA very recently, but today's video is a guide on how I think D.VA should be used once the new patch is out. Because right now, D.VA is probably one of the weaker hero picks when it comes to tanks. She's actually much better as a tankier offense hero in her current state than actually blocking damage. But I'm happy to say that the changes to her in the PTR have really helped a great deal. So I'm going to be working that into the guide overall, and hopefully it gives you guys an idea of how you might be able to use D.VA effectively in matches. So the gameplay you're going to be seeing in the background is taken from one match on Ilios from the current PTR, which I'm honestly really proud of, and I think it's all down to the changes. So first things first, D.VA is a tank hero with a mech. Her mech has 500 hit points in total, of which 400 are actually armor, and she's the only hero with a second life option. It's actually where her mech is destroyed, she's able to eject out and continue fighting on foot. Her primary weapons are two arm-mounted shotgun-like fusion cannons which fire 7 rounds per second. The individual shots fire up to 8 pellets each in a wide spread that can deal up to 3 damage each. This means you have a total of maximum damage potential per shot of 24 damage, or 168 damage per second, which is pretty high. However, her damage fall-off, or the distance where the damage starts to decrease, is pretty severe. The damage fall-off starts at 11 meters and ends at 30 meters, where it will do its minimum possible damage of 0.5 per pellet. This means her minimum damage potential is reduced to just 4 per shot, or 28 damage per second, assuming all pellets hit the target, which they normally don't at that distance. What this all means is that her primary weapons are meant to be used up close in order to maximize your damage potential. However, her weapons are capable of firing infinitely and do not need to reload, meaning she has among the most sustainable DPS in the game, so if you're able to get in close and land hits, you're not going to be stopping for reloads or anything else. However, her weapons seem to draw energy from her mech's primary energy source, so her mech's movement speed while firing is reduced up to 50%. This means you need to set yourself up in a position to fire at enemies up close where you can easily escape if you need to. But you also need to avoid enemies with high melee damage or enemies that use weapons you cannot actively block. And this leads me onto her blocking mechanics. This has been changed in the PTR to something far more effective. You may notice at the bottom right corner of the screen that there's no longer a keybind tooltip for her defense matrix ability, and that's because it's now bound to the right click. It can be toggled on and off by simply holding the right mouse button, and it has an energy meter that appears on the HUD when it's activated. The energy will drain at a constant rate while active, and it takes approximately 3 seconds to fully deplete. A fully depleted defense matrix takes approximately 6 seconds to recharge completely, and the ability has a 1-second cooldown. While active, the defense matrix will destroy any incoming projectiles, but it will not stop beam weapons like Mei's freeze ray or any melee attacks. It's worth noting that the defense matrix functions like an active protection system, and it destroys any projectiles in range within a frontal arc, regardless of the direction the projectile is traveling in. So by moving your defense matrix around and in front of your teammates, you are actually able to protect them from projectiles that are not aimed at you. D.VA's mech is also equipped with boosters that give her up to 2 seconds of boost time. In that time, she can travel up to a maximum of 25 meters, and it can be cancelled at any time. The ability then has a 5-second cooldown, but it can also deal 25 damage and knock back to any enemies you collide with while boosting. You can control her flight direction by simply aiming at the direction you want to go. Interestingly, if you perform a melee attack against any enemy while boosting, you deal the same damage, but you have approximately double the knockback distance. This can allow you to push enemies off objectives in a last-ditch attempt, or off cliffs fairly effectively. Using her boosters to get in close and deal damage is a fairly effective tactic, especially against snipers. It's also very useful for escaping enemies, since it can simply push them out of the way. Now, her ultimate ability is a Self-Destruct. This ejects her from the mech and triggers a Self-Destruct process that takes a total of 3 seconds to complete. The resulting explosion deals 1,000 damage over a 20-meter radius. However, it can be blocked by the environment and props, but it's worth noting that D.VA cannot be hurt by her own self-destructing mech. This means you can get in close and precisely place the mech where you think it'll be most effective. The charge up time will still give enemies a chance to escape, but it is still effective at scattering enemy groups or pushing them off points. Using her boost ability before activating the Self-Destruct will allow the mech to fly towards its targets before exploding. This allows you to effectively throw the mech towards your target instead of just walking into them. When she is ejected from the mech, D.Va is one of the weakest characters in the game. She has 150 hit points, meaning she can be killed by many enemies very quickly. While on foot, she has none of her usual abilities and has to wait for her ultimate meter to charge in order to call down a new mech. This takes a total of 300 points to charge, so it's definitely not anywhere near as long as her normal ultimate ability, but if she has recently used a Self-Destruct, then she is able to call in a new mech almost immediately. When calling down a new mech, if it happens to make contact with any enemies, it will deal 50 damage to them. Her primary weapon while on foot is an automatic pistol that deals 14 damage per shot and fires at a rate of 6.66 rounds per second. The projectiles themselves are fairly slow, so a decent amount of lead is actually required to hit a moving target. It's actually fairly effective at killing low health heroes, and offense heroes, but bear in mind you don't have a lot of hit points, so you don't want to draw too much attention to yourself. However, D.Va's model itself is actually fairly small, so if you move evasively, you can be pretty hard to hit. Overall, with the new changes, D.Va is a far more effective tank than she used to be. However, she won't quite replace Reinhardt as a main tank, but she's still fairly effective in an off-tank role. Additionally, her damage output is fairly high at close range, so she can be very useful at killing small and hard to hit offense heroes. But you do have to be careful when dealing with snipers, since your maximum effective range is fairly short, and D.Va's mech has a very large critical spot at the front. Try closing the distance before attacking enemies and try to attack from the flanks where possible. An interesting thing to note is that when firing at enemies is to aim at the center of mass wherever possible. This is due to the spread of the shotgun pellets even at close range, so in order to make use of the critical hit or headshot damage, try to ensure you aim at the upper torso of most heroes and you should get a reliable headshot as well. Aiming directly at the head can cause more shots to fly past the enemies, especially when they are particularly small. So aiming at the torso area can help to maximize your damage. But overall, this is just how I play as D.Va, and I'm sure everyone may have a different take on it. But what do you guys think? Will D.Va be a more effective tank after the patch? What do you think of the changes? And if you do play D.Va often, how do you play her? Let me know down in the comments below, and don't forget to leave a like if you've enjoyed the video. Also, subscribe if you're new to the channel. My name is Panzer. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.